Go to Chick-fil-A, get me a grilled chicken club sandwich, the 8-piece grilled nuggets for Riza with a large lemonade. Now.
Alright everyone, welcome back to By the Box. We're doing episode 12 this time, Crusaders, Battlegrounds, and Clash of Wings. You'll have to forgive me if I sound like I have a lisp or if I have any verbal malfunctions throughout this video because I took a torque wrench to the face. But we're gonna be alright. So jumping right into Crusader Battlegrounds, I have to say right away, this box it's really interesting. It's this weird black sheep in the catalog where it has good cards, but like all of them are available in better ways. And of course this is the case for a lot of the older boxes, but never this much. So with that being said, in Gold Sphere, I'm going to use one card to represent basically an archetype that is very strong, and a lot of their good cards are in this box. And that card is going to be Noble Knight Medraut. Noble Knight Medraut is a level 4 warrior monster with 1700 attack. While he's face up on the field, he's treated as a normal monster, but then if he's equipped with a Noble Arms equipped spell card, he becomes a dark type monster. His level goes from 4 to 5, and he gains the effect where you can special summon a Noble Knight monster from your deck in defense position except another copy of himself if you control no other monsters. And then if you do this, you have to destroy an equipped spell card that you control. And so this card is the main combo starter outside of Merlin for Noble Knight decks. And the only reason Merlin is a really good combo starter is because he can summon Medraut straight from the deck. So the way this card is used is you equip him with something and then he gains his effect, and then you will special summon a rare Noble Knight from this box that is also seen play in Noble Knights, every single build of them, in Boars. Boars has the same conditions where he's a normal monster in the field and he becomes dark and level 5 if he's equipped with something, but then his effect is during your main phase you can take 3 Noble Arms cards from your deck, and then your opponent chooses one at random. The one they chose is added to your hand and the rest of them go to the graveyard, and that is a hard once per turn. And then so that brings me to the Noble Arms equipped spells. In this box we have Arfiduder, at least I tried this time, Caliburn, Gallatin, and as well as Destiny. All 4 of these see play in Noble Knight decks and they are all very good. And so they all have the effect that when they're destroyed, they can immediately re-equip themselves to a Noble Knight monster that you control. And then their on-field effect is different, but again, they're all pretty good. Artifiduder is probably the best. You can make its target lose 500 attack to destroy a set card your opponent controls. Could be a monster, could be a spell or trap. Caliburn gives you 500 life points. Gallatin increases its target's attack by 1000, and Destiny provides protection against destruction. So you may see where I'm going with this. So when Medraut destroys his equipped spell, it will immediately re-equip itself to Boars, who then you can add another equipped spell and re-equip it to Medraut, and then you have a rank 5 exceed setup, which they have a really good rank 5 exceed in their structure deck, and that's the whole point. The structure deck has everything in it. It has Medraut, it has Dristin, which is paired with a trap card called Until Noble Arms Are Needed once again from the structure deck, that essentially gives Dristin a quick effect destruction, as well as Boars and all of the Noble Knight cards, including Glory of the Noble Knights, which can equip one of the equipped spells directly from the deck. I mean, the deck is extremely good, underrated for sure. It's a very powerful deck, and this is just not the way to go do it. I mean, I will say that Tales of the Noble Knights is arguably the best structure deck in the game. It has all of these cards and more. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's like, while the Noble Knights are great and there's so many great Noble Knight cards in this box, yeah, just get the structure deck. So moving down to Silver Wall, I have a little bit of a bundle deal, not really, but so I have Grandmaster of the Six Samurai as well as Secret Six Samurai Rihan. The Grandmaster of the Six Samurai, he is a level 5 warrior monster with 2100 attack. You can only control one copy of him, and then if you control a face-up 6 Sam monster, you can special summon him from your hand. Now when he's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can target a 6 Samurai monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. Monsters that can special summon themselves are always going to be good because you are not losing any resources to get a monster on the field that you can then use as a material for other things. Seed summon, synchro summon, etc. Or even to beat down, just getting a free monster on the field is always going to be good. And he does see very consistent play in 6 Samurai decks, typically at 1 copy. And 1 copy because you can only control 1 of him, and then if you were to open with 2 of him, it'd just be really, really bricky. So keeping him at 1 copy as this sort of kind of bonus facilitator a lot of the time, as a good material for Rihan, as I'll go into, but could also be paired with Sheehan to go into a rank 5 exceed. Just a very solid card, but then something I'll go over with him. I'll talk about it when I'm done with Rihan. So Rihan is a fusion monster of the Six Samurai archetype. His materials are 3 Six Samurai monsters with different attributes, which plenty of them do have varying attributes. And then his conditions for being fusion summoned is very similar to the Neos monsters. So you send the above cards you control to the graveyard, and then he's fusion summoned. And he has a really good on-field effect where once per turn you can banish a Six Samurai card from your hand or face-up field, and then you target a card on the field and banish it. Banishing any kind of card is always really good. I mean, Karma Cut is a great example, despite it being slower, despite it having a discard cost. And also the fact that all it can banish are face-up monsters, whereas Rihan can banish anything. Now, of course, you can't use it during your opponent's turn, so you can't really disrupt them with that, but it doesn't make that effect any less phenomenal. And then he has this this effect where if a Six Samurai monster you control were to be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish him from the graveyard instead. That has got to be like the biggest icing on the cake effect I've ever heard, because it's not necessary. They really didn't have to give this card that effect, but it's a completely fine effect that is actually pretty good to just have sitting around in the graveyard. It is just straight icing on the cake. So the thing about these cards is they're both good. They both see play in Six Samurai decks, but they are not integral parts of Six Samurai decks. You can make a viable Six Samurai deck without either of them. And the biggest thing about Rihan is that he's just extremely situational. I use that word a lot. And so with this card, he's kind of difficult to bring out, especially when you stack him up against Six Samurai Shiin, who's going to be the monster Six Samurais are going to be trying to go into most of the time. Whereas Rihan is just kind of part of the toolbox. You know, you bring him out when you can in the right situation. He's just a situational toolbox kind of card. And that being said, when he does hit the field, he's really good, but it's not going to happen every single game. And same with Grandmaster. I mean, he does a fair amount for the archetype, but there's builds that just don't even run him and still see success, so he's not a necessity either for Six Samurai decks. You know, I really want my first copy of Grandmaster, but what can you do? Moving down to Bronze Weapon, so I have the normal spell card Recurring Nightmare. Recurring Nightmare has the effect to target 2 dark monsters with 0 defense in your graveyard, and you add them to your hand. Saw historical play in an archetype that is actually predominantly in this box in Steel Swarm, because Steel Swarm are all dark monsters with 0 defense, and this card was kind of made to pair with them. And it saw a little bit of experimentation with Chaos Dragon Levianeer, which I think is kind of funny. So the reason this card is in Bronze Weapon is because of its potential. I value potential over historical any day. And of course, it doesn't see play right now. It did see play in the past, but not all that much. But if it gets the right targets, it could start seeing more play. Whether or not that's going to happen, I'm not sure, but the card is a straight +1. So yeah, going +1 on anything is really good. I mean, that's why Pot of Greed is banned in the TCG, because it's just a +1. And that's what Recurring Nightmare is. It's just very specific. And if it gets those specific targets that work really well with it, then it could be good. And that is to say, if you get this card while going through this box, let's say you're hunting for Rihan or Grandmaster, and then you pull this card, it's not the worst thing in the world, because it's like, okay, I could maybe use it in the future, as opposed to pulling something like Grandmarg, where it's like, all right, well, go sit your ass down in the card catalog. Continuing in Bronze Weapon, I get to talk about the poster boy again, and it's another little bit of a bundle deal thing. It's actually, this segment will be very similar to the whole Noble Knight thing. So Silent Swordsman level 7, he can't be normal summoned or set, and the only way he can be special summoned is by the effect of Silent Swordsman level 5. He has 2800 attack, and he casually, passively negates all spell effects on the field. That is stupid strong, and that's why he's pretty hard to bring out. And of course, Silent Swordsman level 5 and 3 are in this box as well, but then the best card in Silent Sword Slash. This card is still limited to 2. It's a quick play spell card. You can target a Silent Swordsman monster you control. It gains 1500 attack and defense, and then for the rest of the turn, it is immune to your opponent's everything. The card's activation and effects also can't be negated, and as if it wasn't good enough, it can banish itself from the graveyard to add a Silent Swordsman monster from your deck to your hand. So it turns one of your Silent Swordsman monsters into a just absolutely indestructible boss monster for a turn, and then it can't even be negated, which it's used to circumvent level 7's effect, but then it also means your opponent just can't do a thing about it. And then if you didn't win from that, then it can banish itself to give you a Silent Swordsman to try again. Card is so strong, it's why it's still limited to 2, but the thing is Silent Swordsman just doesn't pack the same punch that it used to. With the level 4 Silent Swordsman, who is basically the heart and soul of the archetype, and he ignores the summoning conditions of Silent Swordsman level 7 and can bring him out directly from the deck. And that card is available in Swordbound Silent Structure deck as well as every other card I just talked about. And that's what I meant where it's similar to Noble Knights. It's just, yeah, like this just ain't it. And like I said, Silent Swordsman decks, you know, they can't not even close to 6 Samurai's power level even. However, you know, they're fine. They're fun, that's for sure. This is just not the way to go get them. If you go through the Swordbound Silent Structure deck, you can get all of these cards and more, and it's going to be a way better way if you wanted to build this deck. And so I got 2 cards left in Bronze Weapon. The next one is made a little wild card here, but it's D.D.R, Different Dimension Reincarnation. Has the effect to discard a card to target one of your banished monsters. It's a special summon in face-up attack position and equipped to D.D.R. And of course, if D.D.R leaves the field, then that target is destroyed. So D.D.R, it hasn't seen like all that much play really ever, but it's another one of those like recurring nightmare where I just see a lot more potential in it. And I feel like it's going to kind of follow the timeline that it did in the TCG and the OCG, where when there weren't too many good cards or archetypes that interacted with the banish zone, then this card just wasn't all that great, never really live, never really worth it. But over time, as the game evolved, this card actually ended up becoming really good, just because there were more cards that interacted with the banish zone or would gain you advantage when they were banished, and then you can bring them back, things such as that. So once again, it's kind of like recurring nightmare where it's sitting around waiting for the thing that can mesh with it very well. Again, it does have some rough things about it, discard cost, and it is an ultra rare in the box, but that's kind of what I'm trying to say was if you were to pull it, it's like, okay, you know, it could be good in the future, as opposed to pulling the Dark Creator where it's like, okay, well, I wanted Grandmaster, but yeah, you can waste my time, whatever the fuck. And then the last card I have in Bronze Weapon is actually a normal in the box, and maybe one I'm a little biased about, but that is Card Advance. So Card Advance has the effect to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you return them to the top of your deck in any order that you want. And it has this supplementary effect where you contribute 1 monster in addition to your normal summoner set. That's not terrible, but where this card's being played, that effect is never used. And where this card is being played is in an underrated rogue deck that happens to be my favorite in the game right now, in Infernities. So specifically Shell of a Ghost Infernities, they value this card so much, and as of late it's been seeing play at 3 copies in Infernity decks. So the reason why this is so good is because Infernity's whole thing is centered around their main deck monster, Infernity Archfiend. He has the effect that when he's drawn and you have no other cards in your hand, you can special summon him and then search any card from the archetype from your deck to your hand. And that play, that one effect, is how their whole deck and their whole combo pops off. And so this is not what happens, and it's not like really how this is used, but this is just a bare bones example to kind of show what I mean. So of course you need to draw Infernity Archfiend with no other cards in your hand, and you could use Card Advance to set the top of your deck to where Infernity Archfiend would be the next card that you draw on your next turn and start the combos. Now Infernity decks use Dark World Dealings and Into the Void and Drag Down to the Grave to make this more consistent, and it's again not really ever used in that vein. They try to do this in 1 turn. Then there's also Infernity Launcher, which can directly send Archfiend to the graveyard and then bring him back with no cards in your hand, and you may want that card for your situation to set up. This card just basically makes the deck so much more consistent, and because of how inconsistent it is running 4 monster cards, it really needs this. I would go as far as to say this Infernity deck would not work without Card Advance. And if you want a little more on that, I do have a deck profile for that Infernity deck specifically, and then I also have a win streak to a King of Games montage meme shenanigans as well. And in that deck profile, I also talked about Spellbook Organization, which is a card that does almost the same thing. It doesn't, you know, do the whole tribute summon thing, and it only lets you pick the top 3 cards, but it is a quick play spell card, so you could use it during your opponent's end phase, for example. And in that video, I said that the 2 of them were about equal, and I take that back now. I do think Card Advance is better, and run it 3 copies is optimal. Easy card to pull in the box, but this is the only way to obtain it. And yeah, I begrudgingly went through like 30 packs of this box trying to get 3 copies of it for Infernities, and it just wasn't being nice to me, so whatever. I don't really have any stray thoughts for this one. I already got to talk about the poster boy, so yeah, it kind of does it for Crusaders Battlegrounds. It's trash. Moving on to Clash of Wings. Okay. So I got 2 cards to talk about. They're both in bronze weapon. I'll start with the dude, Beat Bladesman for Hire. It's one of my favorite cards in the game just because of how cute he is. So Beat Bladesman for Hire is probably the best for hire card that we have. During your main phase, you can special summon another for hire monster, except another copy of himself. And then if a monster for hire is special summoned to your field while you control him, then you can add another monster from hire from your deck to your hand, except another copy of himself. So yes, he literally triggers his own effect. And in my half-off decks gem nonsense video, I mentioned that this card is a straight 2-for-1, and he absolutely is. And so he's gonna kind of represent the archetype a little bit here too, because a lot of their cards that they run in Dompa and Recon and Dyna and Seal and Wiz, they're all in here. So you could build a whole for hire deck just by going through this box a couple of times, with the hardest card to get being Beat. But yeah, I mean, he's a great card for the archetype. Now, the problem with for hires is I think they are one of the premier examples of a deck that has just been straight power crept, because nothing really changed about the deck. Nothing happened to them. They didn't get like super restrictions or anything, because they used to be one of the best decks in the game for sure. They just are so much weaker than everything else now. They are just one of the decks that just got straight power crept, and I can't give it the same credence I can to Six Samurais, where Six Samurais can still compete very well. For hires, they just can't put a dent into anything. They don't have bite anymore. But they're fun. So yeah, I mean, I honestly wouldn't fault someone like if they wanted to build a for hire deck. And if that's the case, then this box can get you basically everything that you need. And definitely Beat representing them here, because he is the best card in the archetype. So my other card is Nebula Meteorite. So this card is part of the Worm archetype unofficially. Has the effect to change all face down monsters on the field into face up defense position. And during the end phase, you change all face up light reptile monsters you control to face down defense position, and then you get to draw a card for each. And then after that, you can special summon a level 7 or higher light reptile monster from your deck. So I mean, the card is just great for what Worms try to accomplish. They all have effects that activate when they're flipped up, and then they all have synergy by flipping each other down. For example, I have Worm Rakuya right here. He has the effect that he can only declare an attack the turn he's flipped face up, and then if he does attack, he's changed to face down defense position at the end of the battle phase. He's terrible. He's an absolutely terrible card, but you know, just kind of an example of what I'm talking about. And then, you know, its last effect could be used to bring Worm King out, who can destroy a card on the field. But the biggest thing is that drawing cards thing. That's so nice. But the worms that synergize with this card in the Worm deck, which is not even a rogue deck, it's just a straight gimmick deck, but it's funny. They don't appear in this box. But yeah, I mean, it's the best Worm card, in my opinion, in the game. So that gives it some credence, solid, quite a few good effects. So yeah, bronze weapon. And I guess maybe some stray thoughts about this box. So Recycle is a good loop card. I've talked about this before, but so like what I mean by loop is there are certain game mats in the game of boss monsters that you can only get by summoning that boss monster 100 times. So for example, there is a Rainbow Dragon mat in the game, and in order to obtain it, you have to summon Rainbow Dragon 100 times, which is obviously very difficult, monotonous, and time consuming. So people have come up with loops or cycles to where you can summon these monsters multiple times in a duel, and typically you could summon them 15 to 30 times per duel, which drastically reduces the amount of time that you would need to put in to get those game mats. And Recycle is, funny enough, an integral part of almost every single loop deck that there is. So yeah, I don't know, I just need something else to talk about. So that's gonna do it for By the Box episode 12. Next time we'll be going over Burning Nova and Empire of Scarlet. So I'm going to be posting a video tomorrow. It's going to be different. It's going to be very out of left field for my channel's, well, like genre and standards for sure. But yeah, I'm, like I kept saying, you know, like everyone's kind of growing tired of Duel Links, and I'm a little late to the party because I was loving Infernities so much. And so I found a deck that I was really enjoying, but now it's kind of starting to wear off on me, and if you watch the end of my last stream, you kind of know where I'm at right now. Duel Links is kind of frustrating at the moment. So I'm taking a step back to try something different. and I don't want to spoil it, but I'll put it this way. It has nothing to do with Duel Links or Master Duel. Again, it's just going to be something different. It's a concept that isn't exactly original, but it's something that when I look at the concept and I think about my style of content, like my editing and the way that I do my videos, I feel like I could put an interesting spin on the kind of thing. So look forward to that. I'm going to really appreciate the feedback on that, and I want to start trying some new things with the channel. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next episode.